So we're live?
We're live now.
I wasn't done breaking Mark's balls. As long as you're done fiddling, then we're not going to get taken off air.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Live News for August 2019. UK Mike's been drinking, but don't let that bother you.
Don't let the booze confuse you.
No, don't let the booze confuse you. And Scott's video will be up here too, henceforth, forthwith. So we shall do the usual round table of what we've all been up to this month. I might as well go first as I'm talking right now. Not a whole lot. I did want to say that the comedy clips from last month, were sent in by Jeff Neal, Saberman in the forums, who came up with the idea and sent the clips and then the closer at the end. So thank you, Jeff, for that. What else did I do? I put a Game Boy Color emulator on my phone. One afternoon, I was tooling about at work, running some scripts that were taking a while, so I played some backgammon on the Game Boy Color emulator and beat it on the highest level, because I'm a dab hand at backgammon. And I went to watch the Book of Mormon at the theatre in Manchester, at a theatre in Manchester, which is okay. It's pretty funny. I think it's a bit overrated. I don't know if you've heard of it, seen it, or whatever, but it's worth a watch, but maybe a little overrated.
I've heard good things. But I'll say this. The funny thing I notice about English people in general, as they drink, they don't really sound so much drunk because they just tend to change region that they're from.
Where am I from at the moment, then?
It sounds like you've moved out of the Lancashire area a little over more towards, Retro Sean's home ground.
I become more Geordie as I get drunk.
A wee bit. And random sounds more like 80.
There are some great words. We had a list of words that are great to say in a Geordie accent. So one is photocopier, which is photocopier. Kawasaki. There are a few others.
Motorcycle.
Motorcycle. I can't remember what the others were, but there's a few on the list. Sound great in a Geordie accent. So that is pretty much me for this month.
Well, I have been working away furiously at some projects, getting ready for the Tandy Assembly, which is coming up at the end of September. So this will be the last show before you hear about it. So if you're not familiar with it, it is in Ohio. There's finally something to do there. If you search Tandy Assembly, you'll find it. And it is a gaming convention, computer convention centered around the Tandy brand, which is a huge, huge brand in America. They sold mountains of computers at one point, the largest computer manufacturer in America. And you never see them at expos. You'll see, the Commodore, the Amiga, the Apples, you just never see Tandy. It just fell off the face of the earth. So there's only one book about it. It's just kind of a weird thing. But that said, they have their own expo, so I'm going. The project computer I'm taking is complete now. It's originally an 8088 with 256K RAM and a 720K floppy. It's now an NECV20 CPU with 640K RAM, smartwatch, which is the real-time clock, the 720K floppy, a 1.44 megabyte floppy, a USB floppy emulator, the memory expansion, the video expansion to allow for VGA, which it now features, and a hard drive controller that's connected to a compact flash card, 2 serial ports connected to a mouse and a modem, and all that running off the original power supply with room to spare. So it is now and I have the parallel port sound too. So it is a very hot-rodded PCXT, basically, and I'll be blowing all the nerds away with SimCity running in VGA mode off of this XT. And if I can pull it off, I'll even put in a CD-ROM, and there's an external CD-ROM I can run. If the memory will allow me to do it, I'll run that, and I can run the SimCity CD version. Possibly, I can't promise anything yet, but it's also going to be running BBS. Terminal software running a BBS that uses the VGA graphics standard. Um, so it's going to be displaying high-res bulletin board surfing on a PCXT, which will do both of those applications very well. The other thing is, and this is kind of Sparkle Puss's alley here. I was never really a Mac person. I kind of liked them. A couple times in my life, I came very close to owning Macs. I bought I bought a Mac SE, which has a floppy drive and a SCSI hard drive and 4 meg RAM. And I'm in the midst of revamping it to have a SD card as a hard drive with a SCSI to SD adapter. I'm doing all the recaps on it, all the important stuff, throwing in a little networking action. And it's your classic, what you think of when you think of old school Mac, the little lunchbox thing with the little 9-inch CRT. And we're going to be running System 608 or System 7, depending on the mood. 6 gives you more memory overhead for games. So I'll be catching up on some of the Mac gaming I missed out on back in the 80s. And I kind of look forward to it. So far, it's been a real fun computer to play with, pretty well designed. So I can kind of see the attraction. It's been pretty fun. The other thing I've kind of been up to, it's not gaming related, but it's a cool project, so I'll just share it briefly. We have a teensy weensy little Japanese roadster sold over here called the Miata. In the UK and parts of Europe, it's more commonly called the MX-5. I picked one of these up about 4 or 5 months ago, and I've been kind of hammering away on it as a project car. And it's just about done. I'm waiting on one additional component. I just kind of turned the last few screws on it this afternoon before starting the news. So normally, just like a man, you shouldn't be a male nurse. The only thing a male should nurse is a bottle of scotch. You shouldn't drive a Miata. It is a girl's secretary car until you do something hysterical and you shove in a giant LSV8 that you would normally find in a Corvette. So that's the task at hand. As soon as I get the final transmission component, it will be complete and ready to go terrorize the roadways.
Did you buy a new one, or is this a used one that you're doing this to?
No, this is I picked up an NB, which was made from 98 to 2003, I think. This is like a 2002. It's the lighter of the series, other than the NA, but the NA lacks a lot of things I wanted. But it's that tiny little lightweight Japanese roadster that you cram the big V8 into, and it's hysterically, comically fast. So I can't wait to have that little project wrapped up. Not gaming related, but just kind of a neat project.
Did you finish twiddling with your video?
Rebooting.
Okay.
I've not done a great deal gaming related. I've been titting about a little bit with Super Mario Maker, but nowhere near what I wanted to try and achieve this month with it. Most of the time, I don't know what I've been doing. Trying to organise our new skinny dipping group has taken up a fair bit of time. But other than that, yeah, I guess I'll probably just.
What is the name of said group?
Well, the Sheffield Wild Swimming Group is called SOUP, which stands for Sheffield Outdoor Plungers. So our little offshot group is just called Soup Skinnies. But we recruited another 4 people this weekend.
So they all female?
Is that like the gateway drug to, orgies, swinging or something? Is that like you start off with skinny dipping and then you quickly move into swinging, or?
No, much like how marijuana is not gonna generally take you into a life shooting up heroin in an alleyway. I think skinny dipping is pretty safe. That you might wander into more general naturism unless you're already into that. But
I think
otherwise,
it goes
it's
skinny dipping, copping a feel, penetration. I think that's how it goes.
nah. There's plenty of dogging. There's plenty of dogging around here. So if you were gonna you just go straight to that first. I think
In at
cut
the
out
deep end.
all the foreplay, as it were.
Well, here's the show title: Straight to the Dogging. Forget skinny dipping. Straight to the dogging.
Yeah.
Sparkle,
What
have you
else?
been up to?
Yeah, so I don't know. I packed in quite a bit since the last news show. There's a carnival that set up in the local mall parking lot. So went up there a couple times, rode a couple death traps, played some carnival games, saw lots of people missing teeth. I think a lot of those people were also at the Hart and Joan Jett concert that I went to earlier in the month. Surprisingly, it was a really good show. The Hart sisters still were able to belt it out. I mean, obviously their voices were a little strained. I think they're 65 and 69 or something. But hey, man,
I
for
think
that
like
age,
69 and 70.
something like that. I
Yeah.
mean, they're up there. But damn, they played good. They played Alone. You know, they played all the hits that you wanted to hear. Of course, at the end, they closed it down with Barracuda. Joan Jett was great. She looks like she's on roids or something now. Like her arms just look like way too muscular. Like maybe she's getting some kind of like human growth hormone injections, or she's like eating fetuses, or it's like something looked weird. Like her
Somewhere
arms
on that
just,
spectrum.
yeah, they looked like she was doing something, right? Like it was just like, wow, your arms are like ripped like way more than mine. What's going on? But they sounded good. You know, going to those concerts are always fun because you just kind of look around, you're like, you know, oh my God, these people walk among us. Like, what sewer did they fucking crawl out of? It was great. The only thing that I didn't like was there was some fucking idiot next to me smoking a blunt, blowing the weed smoke on my kid, and had to basically threaten to punch him in the face. So he, you know, kind of meandered off. But, you know, just have a little respect, right? Like, I don't care what the fuck you want to do, but don't blow that shit on a little kid. The fuck's wrong with you? I was up in Asheville, North Carolina, stayed at the Omni Grove Hotel, which is fantastic. If you guys ever find yourself in the Blue Ridge Mountains, highly recommend it. I think it's on the the National History Register of Historic Places or something. It was built in, I think, like 1913. Lots of presidents have stayed there, you know, like Coolidge, Wilson, Roosevelt, Eisenhower, Nixon, Bush, Clinton, Obama. Like they have their golf clubs and shit there. It's super swank, super opulent. Just incredible fucking resort to stay at. So if you're thinking about going to Asheville sometime, I highly recommend that place. Blew a fucking tire on a pothole in the mountains, which wasn't fun. Had to jack my car up and throw the donut on, go get a new one. As far as gaming goes, trying to finish off Red Dead Redemption 2. There's just like most Rockstar games, some fucking bugs. I had the white Arabian horse, which is like the hardest to get one in the game, and I was riding towards the final mission. They have sort of like an auto run where you can kind of set a waypoint, and your horse will just kind of travel there, and you can just kind of set the control down. And it was wandering around some little cliff, and then just decided to fall off the cliff, and then the fucking saddle was like stuck underwater, so I couldn't retrieve it. And I hadn't saved in a while, just done auto saves, so I had to either like decide to give up, you know, like 8 hours worth of gameplay and keep my horse, or just say fuck it and kind of continue on. So I was like, fuck it, I'm not playing another 8 hours to get back to where I was. So finished the main story. I'm in the epilogue chapters now. Just be happy to finish that game. I mean, it's good. It's just kind of slow. Been playing some 1943. Always have fun with some shoot 'em ups. And then there's this song that's really popular right now. It's by an artist called Billie Eilish. Song's Bad Guy. Have you guys heard that song?
No.
No.
Random?
I've heard the artist name, but didn't know why I'd heard the artist name.
Yeah,
So I hope you're
there's a
going to
song
enlighten
Bad
me.
Guy. I don't know. It's like a current pop song. You know, whatever. It may or may not be for you, but kids at work were jamming out to it, and I was like, man, I know that sample from something, and I don't know if it's from like an overclocked remix or something else. Maybe the listeners can take a listen to "Bad Guy" by Billie Eilish, but there is this sort of like sample in it, and I swear it's from Ghosts and Goblins. And if not, maybe it's from like an overclocked remix of Ghosts and Goblins that I had. So anyway, it kind of inspired me to pick up Ghosts and Goblins again, which is just fucking brutal, and I don't think I'll ever be able to beat that game, no matter how hard I try. So been playing that. As far as some liquor pickups that I did this month, I scored some Weller Special Reserve, some Hennessy Pure White when I was in the Caribbean last month. Got some
Alright.
Knob Creek store pick, which was a 15-year-old 120 proof for $42, which was a great deal. And I got some Ardbeg Drum, which is an annual release. So if you guys are looking for the Ardbeg annual release, the drum is out now and will be disappearing rapidly off of store shelves. So recommend that. According to the box, it was finished in some rum casks. So it has that smoky Ardbeg flavor and some banana and pineapple notes. So yeah, there you go.
Awesome. We can give away a couple of prizes. Not many in chat at the moment, but that increases your chances of winning. We will have a phrase that pays, which will sound something like this.
Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
And when you hear that, you need to type in the chat window the phrase that pays, which will be, I guess, gendered language. And you can pick a prize from retrogamingroundup.com/prizes. I will paste the link in chat for you. So there, the prize is up for grabs this month. I've still not sent mine out that I need to send out. I will do it this week, maybe. So type in the phrase that pays when you hear the prize alarm, which is this.
Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Words
Now,
to live
was that
by.
just a test?
That one was a test, yes.
Thank you, comrade.
As was that.
Thank you, comrade.
So we can dive into some news. It's a summer month, so a little thin on the ground this month, as it tends to happen. So the first one up is a YouTube video, which is entitled "If Video Game Bosses Were Actually Smart." You can enjoy it at your leisure. I think I can probably play it a little bit in the live feed right now. There you go. You can see it on screen. Zelda one at the moment. But some of them are pretty funny. He's trying to get in the dungeon to get to the last boss. And the last boss has not left the key anywhere, so he can't get in. And more along similar lines that you can enjoy at your leisure. So thank you to me for that. I sent that one in.
Pretty funny. It has like 13 million views too. So
Yeah,
why the hell didn't we do that? Jeez.
I know. Viral video.
Because it would have gotten 12 views. Somebody would have copied it, removed our watermark, and gotten 12 million.
Yeah. One from Sean Stevenson, which I was reading earlier today, actually. Here's a nice long read on the resurgence of pinball with a focus on California Extreme, the show I work at each year in Santa Clara. The article contains links to the previous 5 articles, all worth a read. I was reading them in numerical order, and one of them is it's a countdown. I think the top is it the top 100 pinballs, the top 60 pinball games, something like that. And so I started at number 60, reading down, and it just seems like the person writing that hates pinball. He's like just being really negative on all of the games so far. So hopefully he gets to appreciate some of the better games, but I don't know. Seems a little on the negative side at the moment. But I'm only up to number 40.
So I got one here from Random Dave. I just noticed this here. New C64 game, Curry Clicker. So it says here, Rose's Curry Clicker, making hot curries on the C64. So you end up with, I guess, Indian curries, Thai curries, Malaysian curries, Japanese curries. And it says, I'm not a curry eater. Not only do I not like spicy food, but I give it an hour later, and I'd be curled up on the floor in pain from the dangerous levels of heartburn. Thankfully, Rose's Curry Clicker from Cameron Davis doesn't require anyone to eat any real Indian food, as this is a game released for the C64 in which you need to keep Rosie fed with some of the best curry ever made. It looks like it's got, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4 different layers for U.S. symbol curries. So, Dave, anything you want to add to that?
What?
Exactly.
No,
I think you picked up one of those waterborne parasites. The brain-eating amoeba.
No, I just thought it was a fun little thing that someone's made a clicker, and they've made it for the C64, which why not?
Why not? So I sent one in here.
Why make a web-based game?
I sent one in here, and it is Sniper Elite 3 Ultimate Edition brings Nazi slaughter to the Switch. And I've played Sniper Elite 2 on the PS3. I do like that game. It's pretty fun how the bullet hits the target and you see it going through bone, and you see the damage it does internally. And it got me thinking about Nintendo, and we've gone from them changing blood from red to green, and now they've got Nazi slaughter on the Switch. And then I sent one in a little further down. I'm just trying to scroll down and find it now. I think it was Hotline Miami, which was a game that caused a great fuss at the time because of its violence, and that's coming to Switch as well. So I don't know, have they just completely changed?
This is quite literally a murder simulation game. There's really no other way of describing it. I mean, you have to monitor your heartbeat and check the wind speed and everything else, and you see the bullets going through the skulls and stuff. I mean, this is quite literally sniper, murder training simulation. So yeah, I mean, they've opened up the platform, apparently, right? I mean, this is way more bloody and graphic than Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat ever was. So
yeah.
Woo.
They've just completely turned around, and it was Hotline Miami 1 and 2 they're making for the Switch as well. So I played that game. I didn't really like it, but there was a lot of blood and gore in there, and just out and out violence. So seems Nintendo were getting a bit more lax.
But they had Resident Evil 4 when it came out was a GameCube exclusive. They had a couple Sega games on the Wii. I forget the title offhand right now, but it was that black and white one that was a lot of murder.
Mad World.
Yeah. Was that it? Mad World. So I mean, there's been some, sort of exclamation points along the way. I would say, generally speaking, they're not the platform for the Call of Duties and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just primarily that's driven by the online community being on other platforms. But there's definitely some head scratchers there, so hey, at least they have some options for people that want to do murder simulation now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it's anything to do with the sort of the new management as well. They seem to be a lot more responding more to sort of shareholders and their desires. And they've got, I think both Japan and America are now sort of spearheaded by new people. So I wonder if there's just a general, let's relax things, actually make a bit more money, try and not be the kiddie console so much.
I'd like to see some more damn titles. I still have essentially 3 games for my Switch. I've got Mario Maker 2, the Mario Brothers, and Legend of Zelda, and not a lot else out there appeals to me at all.
Turok 2's coming if you're interested in that. Next month, this month as you're listening to the podcast, but or is that that was sent in the end of July, so maybe it's out now, is it?
I think it is out now. 9th of August. Its release date was. And I was going to take this one. I was going to say, Turok 2's the one that's, it's not great. Like, you can go back to Turok 1 and there are sort of, obvious this was a launch title sort of game, but it did some interesting stuff, especially on a sort of a console FPS. But 2 always seemed to be a bit shit, but I think a lot of that was just the performance. Whereas I was watching a video of sort of how it shakes down on the remasters, and it looks like it's, they've fixed all the frame rate issues and stuff, so it's actually turned it into quite a decent little game now. So
I haven't played Turok since the N64.
I've not played a lot of 2 at all yet, and I've got it in a box for the N64, and I keep sort of thinking, yeah, maybe I'll do it one day, and then there's just a lot better games to play, I think.
Yeah.
So it gets pushed to the back of the queue.
There's one here.
Well, I've got one here sent in by Michael James, and he gives us a report that the Halo TV series has been pushed to 2021. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of this because, I never played the Halo series. I think it was one of the more intriguing things on the Xbox, but I couldn't get past level 1. Just die, because it was the peak of the double thumb only gaming, and there was no investment in gamers that weren't double thumb gamers. So a lot about it, I like the idea, the graphics, the lore, the storyline, the alien races and all that. It was just overall just a really neat idea, just kind of unplayable and inaccessible to people who weren't just gifted at double thumb gaming. So given that I've been playing through some of the Halo series on the Xbox One X or whatever the hell it is called these days, I like it. I really do. I like the storyline. I think it could be a compelling series. If it's shot with lots of space sequences, lots of battle sequences, show off the tech, the alien races, if they're all done, to a very high standard of production, and given that it's on Showtime, they did some great series like, the one that I just, it's a damn shame they ended it. It was about Boardwalk Empire, about the 20s, New Jersey gangster scene, wonderful characters, top actors, Michael Shannon, Steve Buscemi just did a masterful job. They have done some good stuff, Breaking Bad, so I think Halo could be done right. If it descends into a soap opera chaos or, gets all preachy, then I think I'll definitely be out, but I certainly won't condemn it before it arrives. I hope to see good things from it.
In full disclosure, Scott's third cousin, Pablo Schreiber, is playing Master Chief in the series.
Yeah. Good old Pablo. We'll sit at the table at the family reunion and chat about it.
Another one here from Retro Sean. Cool. I hadn't heard of this Twin Peaks inspired game, but it's now available to play in English. And the game is called... It came out in '88 on the PS1. And it says you can play the Lynchian Mizurna Falls in English now. Any Twin Peaks fans among the group?
No, I spent when it came out. It was a big hot ticket. Yay! This is the greatest show ever. I probably spent about 20 minutes watching an episode, saying, "What the hell is this?" And then I was done. Never went back. No interest.
I watched the first 2 seasons, and they made another one more recently, maybe a couple of years old now, maybe a bit more than that, actually. I've not gone back to that yet, but I did like the first 2.
I like the first one. The second one, don't know. And then I've not managed to finish watching the third one, the new one, yet. It just, I don't know. I know I was watching it often after a few whiskies, which didn't help, I'd imagine. And then I kept sort of watching it in sort of bed and falling asleep partway through it and things like that. And so I had to keep rewatching it, and then I'd be like, "Have I seen this bit before? I don't know." I got very confused, and I had I think it would be hard enough to know what the fuck was going on anyway, at least in the first 8 episodes, and then to also be kind of thinking, "Have I seen part of this before? Have I already tried to watch this? I don't know." Yeah, trying to watch it when you're drunk or anything like that, it was fucking bizarre, but in a kind of a good way, and I still will finish it, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
I sent one in, so people on the internet love to have fun with remixing and doing some Photoshop work. This one is just hilarious to me. So there's a video that this doctor put out. He's like a wildlife doctor, and it's a salmon tube. And he's basically shoving salmon in this tube, and it kind of shoots them up over a dam. And they're showing how this dam helps the fish pass over the dam in seconds rather than days. And I guess it helps with the spawning, so there's new salmon replenished in the wild. Where this user, Tufty Cake, changed the audio with Super Mario Brothers songs in audio cuts, and it's hilarious. You guys got to see this. The link will be in the show notes, but just some good fun, 30 seconds of your time. You'll laugh your ass off if you see it.
The video's playing in the stream right now. Yeah, I've seen the salmon tube. I saw it before they did the remix, actually. It popped up in a newsfeed a while ago, and now they got Mario music to it. It's a great invention, really.
I bet they love it.
I bet the salmon is fucking spaced out. Imagine being a salmon and being whizzed up that thing. Wow.
Got one that I sent in, which is headline: Gene Simmons likes Obstagoon and will not sue Pokemon over Kiss license. Well, likeness even, which isn't quite strictly like a true sort of headline. But if you haven't noticed the new Pokemon, there's one that does bear a sort of a striking resemblance to a Kiss character with his the sort of the markings on its head, and it's got a big pink tongue sticking out. And with Gene Simmons having been a bit sort of sue heavy, very protective of the brand over the years, someone has actually sort of talked to them, and he basically said, his quote was, "Pokemon has been a big part of our household for decades, ever since our kids first discovered them. And to see Pokemon pay homage to Kiss is flattering. It's a Kiss world, you're all just living in it." Whether that was the inspiration for the designers, we don't know, but it looks pretty much like it probably was. So that's kind of nice.
I think so.
saw this one.
It's a nice little tribute. It made me chuckle.
See, I saw this one kind of differently. I think there's not a great resemblance, and I think there's only so many looks you can have for Pokemon because there's hundreds of them. And I think it was Gene Simmons injecting himself into a story. It looks like me, but it's okay. I'm not going to do anything about it. It doesn't really look like you, dickhead.
Well, I would say this. I would completely agree with Mr. James here, Comrade James, that Gene Simmons certainly would insert himself into a story and try and tag, because he's almost Monroe-esque in his, when I invented rock and roll, I invented this. And I like Gene Simmons, but you gotta admit it is what it is. He certainly has done that over and over and over. Now that said, I do think this looks a hell of a lot like Gene Simmons, and I think he was the inspiration for the Gene Simmons Pokemon, because that looks just like it. I think it's a dead ringer.
Well, and there's been precedent since the first set of 151 Pokemon with with Alakazam, who was a psychic Pokemon who had the spoons and stuff, and there was the whole and in Japan the actual name for it, phonetically was Umigela, which obviously then Uri Geller did get a bit fucking shirty about and was a dick about it and tried to sue them. So they obviously do, play a little bit on sort of characters and, cultural references. It's not something new they did. So I can see that it was probably inspired by.
I could see the inspiration, and why I think it would be guilty is because they literally threw the Xbox logo on the character's arm. So it's like, hey, let's throw that on there so it looks like it looks like a cover-up job. So
if we copy everyone, then we can't get sued because not everyone can sue us.
Yeah.
If we all go to Area 51, we'll be all right. They can't shoot everyone.
Storm Area 51. Video Masters TV in chat says he wants to Pokemon all night and Pika every day. Chris Lethko sends one in here. Walmart pulls violent video game ads. So you're not allowed to see an ad for a violent video game in Walmart, but you can still walk down the other end to the sporting goods and buy a weapon. So,
which are two distinct and unrelated thoughts.
Absolutely.
Inanimate objects like rifles no more inspire or commit violence than video games do. So, look, I had some comments on this I made just like the other day. I think somebody posted something in our Facebook page and all. And I've certainly seen this topic come up again and again. And there are, politicians that I like and respect, and politicians that I despise, that have both said, not both, many. I mean, many of these politicians have, because typically, these are maybe older people that, didn't grow up as gamers. They just missed that gaming generation. They're, lawyer types or, whatever, business types that weren't going to sit there and play Nintendo, even if it was out and available for them. They were more concerned with those pursuits. So they just have no exposure to it. They don't understand it. They don't get it. They don't see why others do. And so it becomes, for some of them, a convenient boogeyman, for some of them a deflection, for some of them just outright ignorance, to point to video games as somehow being a inspiring of violence, right? And it's just as ignorant as, the anti-gun folks. I've seen, people that literally know nothing about a gun referring to it in completely all the wrong ways, not even knowing what they're talking about. And people eating it up, right? And it happens with video games, too. I think it's unfortunate. It needs to be rebuffed and countered with fact whenever it occurs. Video games do not inspire behavior. They do not modify behavior. They are not simulators for training people to be shooters or anything like that. There's nothing you're going to gain in a video game that's going to help you in any sort of task along those lines. It just isn't the case. So, once again, I have to call total bullshit on this.
Well, I mean, hey, look, I respect them. If they want to pull the ads, it's certainly their right to do so. But I feel like
right. Doesn't mean it's nothing but nonsense.
Yeah, if you make a move like this, it just seems kind of disingenuous to me unless you're all in, right? So if you're going to ban the ads, you certainly should take the guns off the shelf, take the ammo off the shelf, get rid of, quit selling the Saw movie gift set of torture porn movies. Don't sell...
Dude, that would be like taking... teenage girls' bathing suits off the showroom floor because Jeffrey Epstein exists. It's completely ineffective, completely unrelated.
No, well, I mean, I agree with you, but I'm saying if you're gonna do a move like this, it just seems like kind of half-assed if you're still selling like torture porn and the violent games and the guns and
You
everything.
never go full retard.
It's obviously just to appease, some politicians or some shoppers or something, because like you could go around that store and you can buy all kinds of things that you could murder people with. You can watch movies that are far more violent than these sort of fantastical video games where you're flying around with a jetpack shooting people in an alien space world, but you can literally go buy guns and videos of torture porn and stuff like that. So it just seems kind of odd, but whatever.
Yeah, but like Saw the movie, okay? I saw the first one, but it was okay. It just wasn't my thing. It was just kind of a cheesy horror film. But any of those, I mean, those don't inspire behavior. I mean, you could have a person who has their own damn ideas of doing exactly, or somewhat similar things that may enjoy watching something like that, but they already had those ideas well on their own. But even then, pointing to inanimate mechanical objects, that's like saying literally, it would be like saying we're going down to the hardware section next to the gun section, and we're taking out the chains and locks out of the hardware section because they were featured in the movie Saw. That is the bearing that it has on removing guns or removing video games. They're inanimate objects that do not inspire behavior. All of it's fucking dumb. But what is not dumb is what Peter Gibbs sent us. Peter Gibbs sent us a story here that a collector has revealed that he bought a box containing animation cells from the original Super Mario Brothers cartoon. Now, I liked it. I really, some people for some reason just didn't like it, but I truly liked the Super Mario Brothers cartoons. And I thought The Legend of Zelda was great. Every Friday, you had The Legend of Zelda, and then Monday through Thursday, you had the Super Mario Brothers show. Now, the live action stuff was a little hokey and like, come on, get to the cartoon. They could eliminate it, for my opinion. But I really do like the show. I think it was, for its time, there was a lot of bad animation, like the Hanna-Barbera stuff that had like 3 colors and one moving thing per frame. It was just terrible. Early Hanna-Barbera stuff being good, but there was some cheap bad animation out, especially when they started moving overseas. But the Mario Brothers one, I think being a Nintendo product, was well drawn. A lot of effort was put into it. And it's pretty cool. This guy got a hold of a box of animation cells from that show.
God, I would love to have an opportunity. I would buy a couple of these cells. I'd love to have them on my wall, my office.
Oh, yeah.
They look great. Yeah, I agree. Good show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen the Zelda one, a few episodes of that. Not really seen too many of the Mario Brothers ones, but I've got some of the Zelda ones. It's alright.
I have vaguely. I mean, I don't think I was at the age where I was dumb enough to really think it was good per se, but kind of found it vaguely interesting. The age where it came out, and I've sort of stopped myself from watching it again, just because I know it's gonna just be really bad. I think my mate's kid started watching it again recently, and he was just like, "Oh my god, it's terrible." He just keeps putting on the old Mario Brothers cartoons, and it's just awful. It's just
I went back because I downloaded them all. I saw them, on one of the usual sites. I was like, "Oh shit, yeah." So I got them just so I could have them, And I went back and watched a couple episodes. It was pretty watchable. I thought it was pretty good.
So another one here from Peter Gibbs. I think the real news here is that the Polymega is still a thing.
No way.
It is so this is the console that's like a base unit, and you buy the add-ons. So you'll buy the NES add-on, which will have a cartridge slot and NES controller ports on it, and they do it for all sorts of systems. And they are saying the TurboGrafx 16/PC Engine module will include 5 pack-in games. They are Moto Roader 2, Double Dungeons, Shockman, and Dragon Egg. So it's still a thing. It's still rumbling on, but is it actually for sale yet? I mean, they've got the price here, $299.99 for the base unit, and then $59.99 for each add-on module. But is it actually for sale yet?
I have no
Pretty sure
idea, and I just so don't care. It's I don't know. There's something about it, and I think it was the early presentation, the early promotion efforts, and all that just struck me as being quite Kennedy-esque.
Yeah, we
did.
I
mean,
we ridiculed it early on, definitely.
It looks interesting to me. You know, it's like, what's it do, who's it for type thing. It's like you don't create a key and then start looking around for a lock. You have a lock and then you fashion the key for it. So it's just like, you know, the light gun thing is interesting to me, but the rest of it's like, I don't know. Who needs this? I don't really need it. Unless I'm missing something here. It just seems like it's expensive to get all these different modules.
Especially when like the Pi exists and it just has a USB port that you can plug in, one controller for everything, or whatever controller you choose for anything. And the modules are completely superfluous. Now look, I'm not against completely superfluous hardware, okay? There are lots of ways to do things, in gaming that are way more complex than need be. And I am not against that. I mean, I am totally in with that. But when there is a solution out there like the Pi, and you come up with all these modules that do nothing but create a gratuitous module that lets you do the same thing, it is just all kind of pointless.
I mean, they did partner with the Video Game History Foundation, so a portion of all proceeds from the sale of the Polymega do go to supporting the video game history.org group, which is nice. Hey, they're giving back to the community. But Dave, what was that?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, if it's a decent way to play Saturn games, they've got something there, because there's not really a great way to do that outside of the Saturn, but certainly in my experience, a lot of them are kind of breaking down. So if you've got a sort of a modern replacement for a Saturn, that's worth having. It's an odd thing where it's, if it's a system where, a lot of the multi-systems, there was that Japanese one that was like the Retron 5, but also had the TurboGrafx, PC Engine stuff on it, and things like that. Like, the whole sort of selling point there is, instead of having to have 5 or more of your retro consoles all plugged in, all sat out somewhere, and having to either have big switches or plug the cables in and out, you've got this one system that kind of does it all. And Raspberry Pi sort of is going to be a similar setup, whereas this is, the Polymega, it's kind of like, all right, so it will do multiple systems, but you still then need all these big add-on bits like CD drives that have also then the actual, whatever they're doing to replicate the CPU and GPU of the specific hardware and the controller ports. And so you've got to, store that somewhere for the SNES or in the PlayStation 1 and the Saturn 1. So you end up with you might as well have the original hardware, other than the fact that it's, a more, it's a more recently built version of it. So hopefully it would be more reliable. But other than that, it's not really benefiting very much, I don't think.
Well, and let's say if no other consoles had come out, no new, like if what's their name? I'm looking at their stuff right here. Hyperkin had never made stuff, right? If back 12 years ago, it's hard to believe, if they hadn't kicked out the first NES Generation Next. I got one right here, bought CG 2007. It's right in front of me. If Generation Next had never existed, if none of this stuff had ever existed, and this thing came out, it would serve a need and be a hit. But that's not the world we live in.
there are cheaper ways to do what this thing is doing. Whether they're better ways, time will tell, but there are certainly cheaper ways to do what they're doing.
Aye.
But I still can't see it for sale anywhere.
Well, speaking of money, Mike James sent one in that is Mojang Can's Minecraft Super Duper Graphics Pack. And so to start with, this is a graphics update that they'd shown at E3, looked all fancy, and people were kind of quite excited, supposedly, and have been waiting for this fancy graphics for Minecraft to come along. I don't see why you'd necessarily want. Like, I never saw, like, one of my mates was really excited. I was kind of like, what was wrong with the original mine, just keeping it the original graphics. But anyway, they officially cancelled it, citing that it was too difficult to get enough sort of parity across all the various devices they support. But what actually then sort of happened it was probably a week later than the announcement, I think, was that they announced a NVIDIA RTX ray tracing patch for the Windows 10 version of Minecraft, which is eerily similar to some of the fan-made patches that have been happening for the Java version that put ray tracing into the engine, which have all been sort of, there's quite a few graphics mods that are basically funded the development through Patreon. So whether Microsoft have been like, oh, hang on, people are actually like, they'll pay for this other stuff, and why do we need to sort of spend too long putting too much effort into this other thing when we can just quickly sort of do a deal with Nvidia as well, so it's promoting them, so they'll pay for it, and then we'll just get it out and try and cut the legs out of the fan-made stuff. And because I think they've been, the fan-made stuff all works on the original Java client, but Microsoft have been very much, since they bought Mojang and Minecraft, like really pushing the Windows 10 I can't remember what they called that version, but that's what they've rolled out to all the other consoles. And obviously that's where they're trying to get everyone across to, rather than still playing on the older, less supported and less Microsofty Java version. So yeah. But again, I don't know. Like, I think Minecraft's dying a bit anyway now. Wouldn't you say, Mike?
I would think so. Still? I mean, my kids outgrew it. It was only really Millie that was into it, but she outgrew it years ago. I don't see it being that big these days.
Got one from Gareth Hamer. Nintendo appears to be readying for a SNES Switch controller. So, last year they came out with the NES controllers that docked on the Switch, and some internet sleuths were looking around and found some FCC filings. Looks like there's no release date, but they have sort of patented the controller. It looks like it'll dock the same way like the Joy-Cons do. Those controllers that came out that were the NES wireless were $60 for two of them. So, maybe about the same price for this one. It'll be interesting because the docking, the way those ones docked up top, and this one, you got your ZL and ZR pad buttons. So, would that kind of affect the Joy-Con docking? Don't know, but I don't know. I think it's nice that they're putting out this stuff to have the option if you want to play kind of on almost original hardware with some of those emulation games and stuff, and feel what that original controller felt like. Because people are knocking them off anyway, making a USB controller. So why not put out their own? I don't know that I have a need to pick these up. I think the various pro controllers and stuff they make for the Switch are quite nice, so I don't really see a need to go back to this one. How about you guys?
Make it. They'll sell some. I really wouldn't buy one based on any games being provided for. If they have a great game selection or compilation to go with this, yeah. If not,
Yeah,
And don't
release
get-
it with a
don't put
game
out,
bundle.
like 5 of them. You know, do like, you know what? They've been milking these properties long enough. It's time to do a straight up mega release. Just do one, Switch game that carries the NES library for like $60.
Well,
Done.
and I
And then
think
have this
that that's
controller with it.
it's kind of what some people are hoping. So they have the Nintendo Switch Online, which gets you the Nintendo Entertainment System, and there's quite a few titles for it. They haven't really updated it too much. They've added a few along the way, and some sort of like special versions of the game where you can kind of start off in Kid Icarus with a whole bunch of weapons and sort of like the last level, and they do some nice things like that. But I think with them maybe putting this controller set out, maybe what they'll do is release some of these games for Super Nintendo and the online system. I mean, that's kind of what my hope would be.
Yeah, I mean, if I could pick the product, I'd say put 2 controllers and the cartridge in a box for $80, right? And call it the NES Ultra Edition or whatever. And it's literally every game in the library plus the controllers, and I think they'd sell scads of them, but they won't because it's Nintendo. Got one here from Dave Lanke, and it says Taito is making a Bubble Bobble sequel for the Nintendo Switch. Now, this looks good, and this will probably be the 4th game that I buy for the Switch. It is a very slick-looking remake, or a sequel. It's not a remake. A sequel of Bubble Bobble. It lets you have, like, 4-player mode. It's called Bubble Bobble Friends, or Bubble Bobble for Friends. It looks really slick, and that kind of reminds me of all these games like Pac-Man Champion Edition. What's the other the real bright one from around 2007? Geometry Wars. It has just that kind of hyper animated, bright, transparent kind of feel to it. From the video, it looks darn good, and I think I would certainly buy this. Let's see if they have a release date yet on this brief article. It'll land in Europe 19 November and North America first quarter of 2020. So excellent. Looks like
Do they have
a new
price
game
on
at the
that?
beginning of the year.
You see a price anywhere?
Nah, I didn't see one.
Because I picked up that Bomberman game. That was great. I don't think it was full price, which was nice. But I couldn't see paying $60 for this. But it does look fun.
Yeah, I can't see it being a full price game, but you never know.
Yeah, you would hope it would just be, probably digital only, maybe limited run or someone like that will pick up, a physical version, which would be quite expensive at that point if it's a sort of a boutique physical version.
Well, that's the one I want. Physical version.
Well, I'll keep my eyes peeled and let you know.
Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
One here
In
from
fact,
Chris. Go up.
I was just going to say I should maybe try and reach out and see if we can get some copies of 4 Friends for review. There are 4 friends that would want to review it. After all,
That would be. You know what? That could be our next.
Drunken Mule.
Yes, absolutely. 4-player. I'm in for that. Definitely.
Random Jibe entered the phrase that pays. That was the prize alarm for any late cubbers. The phrase
Thanks,
that pays
comrade.
is gendered language.
Thank you, comrade.
And Random Jibe has already won a prize. Have you sent it out, Random? Because he's just won another. You could send them together.
Well, I have already sent it out.
Okay, well, you're sending another. We've got his address already. So pick a prize, Random Jibe, and we'll whiz another prize over to you. In the meantime, while we wait for him to do that, Chris sent us one. Here's my alternative to adding yet another podcast into the video game community. In other words, I'm too cheap to pay for a Libsyn or WordPress account. Neither of which you need to host a podcast, by the way. You can do it completely free as long as you got web hosting. I've started on a read-by-the-author version of my book, The Classic Gaming Bookcast. Anyone who happens to like hearing a narrative about old games while watching applicable gameplay might dig these chunks of voice and video. Here's a couple of links. They will, of course, be in the show notes. He says, thanks. Love the show, as always, Chris++. Well, thank you, Chris++. Your links will be in the show notes. I got a few entrants. Now, maybe I oversold this last month, but we had people guessing the legal cost of lawyers and showers to get the book ready for publishing. So everyone was over. So I think we should maybe give it to the one who was closest. And I think at the moment, I'll have to check all the entries, but I think at the moment it's Peter Gibbs. So the cost was £10,000 plus VAT, which makes it £12,000. Peter Gibbs guessed 14,799. I think he's the closest, but I will have to go through because some have come into news and some have come to my own email, so I will collate them. And Peter, you may have won yourself a Retron 77. What do we think about Trump and his tariffs? Because the US video game console and mobile tariff has been delayed until December.
It's a relatively small tariff. I mean, tariffs work in a way. It's not. If you look at what he's been doing with it, it's the opening shot for a renegotiation, right? We had this sort of Cold War mentality for a very long time that we would accept trade imbalances with other countries, right? Because basically it's a way of subsidizing other countries. And we could either bring them into our orbit, or the Russians were doing this. That's the thing that's missing from the discussion. The Russians are doing the exact same thing, and largely now supplanted by the Chinese. You give a trade incentive by allowing the trade imbalance to exist. And you tend to keep people in your economic orbit. It's sort of an unofficial financial, economic aid to that country. And we also had very just horrific trade deals for a very long time, particularly under Carter, under Obama, under Bush. Where we were just getting totally taken advantage of, and that's being rewritten now largely. So when it comes to tariffs are negotiation, right? You go to the other team, you say, look, we're going to tax the crap out of these things that are coming in because you're not willing to budge. Because they're not willing to budge. Because you got to look at it. Every time in the past that they came to the table and said, we aren't budging, the other side said, oh, okay, all right. And nothing changed. They kept that sweetheart deal. Kind of like, with the Iranians, right? They want back very badly the Obama years, where they were getting freedom and latitude to develop nukes, pallets of cash, coming out of nowhere, and credibility. Those days are gone, and they want that back badly. They used to jump, and old Barry Hussein would say, "How high?" And that's not happening anymore. So along those lines, you have nations that forever got insanely favorable deals. So you come along and say, look, that's changed. We're now negotiating on our best interest. And, they're like, oh, that's never happened before. We're going to resist that. We're not going to make it easy. And so you throw some tariffs at them. They're like, holy shit, these guys mean business. And then they back off. And most of the tariffs that have been put out there in the last, 2 years have been fairly quickly negotiated out of the mix, So it's a tool for, economic statecraft, and I don't think too much of it.
Yeah, I think it's like you say, it's exactly what you say these days. I think what it used to be is a way of maybe kickstarting your own internal business. So, if you're buying widgets from China, you stick a tariff on them and you hope that someone in your country starts making widgets and you create jobs, you create some wealth in your own country. But I think these days it's more
if you
what
have
you
the
say.
best interests of your country at heart, which, wasn't always the case. Now, I'll give you a funny example of that exact tariff structure, okay? So this happened on something I really like. So, things that you like, things that you don't care about can equally be impacted by tariffs. So my favorite vehicle, out of all the vehicles I've ever owned, this is one I own and I keep, is my 1982 Subaru Brat. Love that truck. I've restored it. It's in like showroom condition. And it's one of my favorite vehicles I've ever owned. Been an enthusiast for them forever. So in the 70s, the American market was very concerned about Japanese competition, right? They saw companies like Honda and Toyota that they kind of laughed about suddenly being taken very seriously and selling a lot of units. And the American car industry was making crap by comparison. Their small cars were terrible, and the Japanese small cars were very good. And, they were a up-and-coming force in the market, right? So and this is what, people a lot of times misunderstand what lobbyists are. I mean, I don't care for 80% of lobbyists, but lobbying is a real thing. So you're the American Motors, conglomerates, right? You're Ford, Chevy, whatever, and you're very concerned about this competition coming out of Japan. So, I'm not claiming for or against. I'm just explaining the mechanism. So you go to, the politicians and say, look, we need some protection here because in our state, we've got, 8,000 people at this plant, 12,000 at this plant. All told, we have 75,000 people working in this state on making American cars. How many of them do you want out of business in your district? And the politician says, oh, geez, that's a compelling point you make there. Yeah, I think I'll sign off on that bill that's going to put an import tax on Japanese cars, right? So what happened was the Japanese had placed, they wanted to protect their poultry industry. America can make chickens like nobody's business, right? So they didn't want this giant supply of cheap American chicken flooding their market. So they put a poultry tariff on incoming American poultry, right? And that protected their internal chicken market, right? And that's what a tariff is. That's how they, Mike made a great point about how they can be used. But so in this case, that's how it was done, right? So the Americans, in retaliation for the barrier of entry into the poultry market in Japan, put a tax on Japanese trucks. They figured, okay, look, the Japanese cars are already here, but we're not letting them bring the damn trucks over. So they taxed Japanese trucks. Subaru, being the clever little bastards they are, said, okay. So they put two seats in the back with pistol grips and seat belts and said, it's not a truck, it's a car. And it's jokingly called the chicken tax truck because it was the whole reason the Subaru Brat has two seats in the bed that face backwards were due to American taxes on poultry. Japanese taxes on American poultry. So, I think if your guy's in office, tariffs are an economic tool, and if your guy isn't in office, they're terroristic, tools that are being lobbed about, destroying the world. So, Carter, who I despise, he was president when the tariffs came in place. That resulted in the Brat being created. So, sometimes it works in your favor, and that's a guy I don't like. So life is never simply black and white like that. Just because your guy does it doesn't mean it's good. The guy you don't like does it doesn't mean it's bad. It is what it is. So, this is a moment I can't even explain to you how much I wish good old Neil James was amongst us so we can ring that fucker up and go, Neil, break it down.
Yeah. I remember the first time I went to the US, I think it was like 79 or 80, something like that. And Carter was president. And I saw a great bumper sticker because he was a peanut farmer. And it said, roast Jimmy's nuts.
Yeah.
My thing is with these trade tariffs and stuff like that, and I think it goes for multiple countries. It just seems like they're all kind of they never really have real teeth in them because ultimately, in order to make the change that's necessary, people need to go through some rough patches, and I don't know that anybody's really willing to make the sacrifices that are necessary to create the big.
Well, what's the old
great-
saying? It all depends on whose ox is being gored, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Trump, he want, maybe these tariffs would be good for the long term to kind of get to a level trading field with China or whatever country he's trying to negotiate these tariffs with. But is he really willing to take it all the way? Probably not, because by the time that meaningful change would happen, he'd be up for re-election and would be voted out. So these things need to kind of take place at the beginning of an administration in order to sink in. Because I think people would just be like, "Oh my God, these tariffs, everything's going up in price. Let's get this asshole out of here and get the next person in." So,
Well, that's the
I
hard
don't
thing is the tough medicine to do something like that. But at the same time, during the first, quarter of Trump's presidency, he had a Republican Congress. The presidency, the House and the Senate, and the House and the Senate sat there on their hands and did nothing with the opportunity. So, which was largely why Trump was elected, because all right, we tried the Bushes and they didn't do a damn thing when they were given power, and so it's a refutation of the inability to act. But yeah, I mean, he could have put those things in first, but it wasn't the priority. And even then, had he, would the House and the Senate have gone along with it? Arguably not, because they didn't help out with anything else until they got the message. So yeah, it's
well,
tariffs have been around since before the founding of America. They've been around since the founding of England, since human trade began, and governments wanted to set a tone of balance in trade. Tariffs have been a thing. So seeing it applied to or impacting a video game is absolutely nothing new.
Well, one thing that I think is kind of happening in my world is I've met with some of the major bottlers and stuff, and a lot of these political moves that are being made in California where they've, you see one turtle with a plastic straw up its nose. Next thing you know, plastic straws are banned everywhere. A lot more of that.
The turtle.
A lot more of that stuff is going to be coming, and we feel that pretty quickly they're going to ban plastic bottles, or they make significant moves to reduce the amount of 20-ounce bottles that are available. So, according to the bottlers, there's just quite frankly not enough aluminum available today to replace all this stuff. So if all of a sudden states start banning plastic bottles, there's just not even enough material available for them to do a one-to-one switch and put it in aluminum cans. So might be something interesting to keep an eye on.
Now, this is something I completely agree with. Gareth Hamer sent in a fire-breathing N64. And this is brilliant, okay? This guy, he put in it's fairly simple. He just put a button on the controller that triggers bursts of flame to pop out of his N64. And it's pretty cool because it's got like a pilot light that just keeps burning. And then, I don't know, I mean, there's a number of ways you could do this, right? It looks to me like it's misting an aerosol that then ignites and burns. So he might have something like, kerosene gas, whatever, in a little pump like you would use to fuel model airplanes, or kind of like what sprays water on your windscreen, when you hit the wiper button. And it just sprays this, out of a nozzle right across the fire, and you get, a little 1 second, and then you get your flame cloud. It serves no purpose, but I just think it's really cool. Especially when he's sitting there playing it on his back deck, and you can see it illuminating the jug of gasoline and the hoses sitting next to it. You maybe could have moved those back just a little bit, but that is some funny shit.
Random Dave, there was a network error on your video. Let's try that again.
He done rebooted.
Oh, I think he's dropped off.
He got a blue screen of death, so he'll be back when Windows permits it.
Okay. Which could be now, could be never. Okay, I'll wait for him to come back before we discuss the prize that he needs to send out. Doom release no longer require a Bethesda.net login, which they did at one stage, obviously. People were up in arms saying they don't want to have to do that, and Doom listened, and Doom now no longer needs a Bethesda login to play. But I don't know if you still have to be online to play it, because I know you did at one stage, because it would phone home, make sure you had an account, you'd sign in, then you could play. I don't know if the game still phones home and you need to be online or not, but you don't need a login, which is part way there anyway. One of our former sponsors, Loot Crate, filed for bankruptcy, but were going into administration, and then an investor came in and dropped, I think it was 10 or 12 million into the company to keep it afloat. The investor was Money Chest LLC, which I'd not heard of. They've committed up to $10 million in a bankruptcy loan to keep the firm operating. I'm not sure about the wisdom of that, because if your business model is failing, what are they going to change to make it work?
This is interesting because they kind of came out in 2013, right before we created Retro Magazine. So these guys started off, and their trajectory was just insane. I mean, they blew up so quickly. There was really no one else doing what they were doing at the time. And sure, there had been some female lifestyle products like Birchbox that was out there killing it, doing, like women's makeup and stuff like that. But these guys were the first to really package all the gamer, and sort of comic book swag into a box and put it out there. They were huge. I mean, their numbers, just because we got them on as an early supporter with advertisement dollars for Retro. I mean, they had money coming in hand over fist. They were expanding every month. They just had so many subscribers. It was just going. I had a free subscription that they gave me being part of Retro, and I had bought some for friends and family members, and I think I had it for about 3 years. My kids looked forward to it every month. They had really good curated product as far as I could tell. I thought it was interesting, but then I just kind of got sick of it. They kind of stacked up in the garage. They kept a lot of these boxes. Half the stuff I had, I was like, do I really need it? The thing that I did really like is that they had a shirt every month. I still have a lot of the T-shirts. Maybe half of them I've donated to, Goodwill or something like that. But I thought it was a good product. I thought the value proposition was good. But then they started shifting. They started doing these boxes where it was like, hey, it's not too late. You can get last month's box. You can get a special box full of this stuff. They always try to have like a main theme to all their boxes, and admittedly I haven't been a subscriber for over 2 years at this point, but I just kind of got sick of it. So was it a flash in the pan? I don't know. Like you have to constantly refill, and I think they had a very aggressive model, as far as what they were willing to pay. They had different tiers, and they would put your item into a certain tier, whether it was super premium, ultra premium, average, below average, and then there was a dollar amount that they were willing to pay per unit. You shipped it to them, they boxed it up. So it was a loss leader for whoever was putting the products in there. But I would imagine their acquisition costs were just astronomical, as trying to get the amount of advertising what they're paying to get a new subscriber to that box. And then if you don't resubscribe, these things can be expensive to run. So I think that's
maybe
that's
also it was just the idea that its time had come and gone. Maybe this was never meant to be a long-term interest.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I know a lot of these box companies have kind of come and gone over the time. As far as this space, they're one of the largest ones. Also worked with Geekbox, Nerdbox. There's several of them
Nerd
that I
block.
worked with as retro. And I had multiple subscriptions to several of these at different points, and had our product featured in a few of them. Um, they're cool, but it's like, now it's oversaturated. There's a ton of them out there. Um,
So the only one that we have a subscription to in our house is one called the Kitnip box, and it's pretty inexpensive. And every month you get like a couple dozen cat toys and uh, various treats and things like that. And it is kind of cool, because when it shows up, the cats have kind of learned, okay, hey, there's good stuff in the box when it gets opened. So they all kind of come around to see what toys and treats and stuff they get. So it's kind of cool. But that's like an actual value, right? Like, because cat toys wear the hell out. They get torn. Cats are just destructive as hell. They destroy their toys. So if you get them like some little toy or whatever, it's either going to get knocked under a video game or furniture in the normal house. It's going to get chewed up, lost, whatever. So you just continuously go through them. I don't want to go to the damn pet store and just keep buying, cat toys off the shelf or, buy a giant box of. So if they just basically magically appear at the house at the same rate that they get lost or destroyed, it's not a bad deal. So that's a valid service, which I think is completely distinct from, these gamer boxes, which just kind of get old after a short period of time.
yeah, after a while, it's, like there'd be some months where I got like a Ninja Turtles T-shirt. Ninja Turtles are fine, but is middle-aged man, like I'm not gonna walk around my Ninja Turtles. There were some months that was cool, like I got a Dungeons and Dragons shirt I really liked. There was one that was like Game of Thrones remixed with Mega Man, and it was just kind of goofy, and it was like, so if you got that box that you absolutely loved, you're like, man, this is great. I got this badass Transformer shirt. And then some months it was just kind of corny, and you're like, ugh, So I think you kind of live and die by a lot of that product, and you can get kind of burned out. How many keychains do you really need? I mean, I got Minecraft keychains, Batman keychains, Mario keychains. I got all kinds of magnets, and I think, you get a year subscription or even 2 years of that stuff, and after a while, maybe you just kind of get burned out on it. You're like, I don't really need this stuff. It's kind of forgettable. I got some cool mugs along the way. I got like a Venom mug, a Star Fox mug, but it's like, how much of that shit do you really need? I think as a lot of us get older, it's like you're probably looking to be a little bit more selective with your stuff. It's great if you have kids, but I could see why it would be a tough business in the long run. So you're right. People just kind of get burned out. Dave, did you ever have a Loot Crate?
I did not. I know a couple of people at Sumo, they used to get bits and pieces, but it just ended up with them. There'd be maybe one or two things at most that they'd want out of it each month, and then the rest would just go on the Sumo junk mail sort of email group and just be like, does anyone want this stuff? I'm going to put it in the kitchen. Feel free to take it, kind of thing.
I tell you what, the one thing that did kind of work out pretty good and was fun is there's a Ferrari forum I'm on, and we did what we call the big box of crap, and it was a big box too. I mean, this thing was heavy, and the idea was you would mail it to the next person on the list, and then they would receive it. They'd put something in, take something out, and then mail it to the next person. And there was a lot of cool stuff that ended up in this box, So I got a very cool neck lanyard that I still have to this day. That is, it's got the Ferrari logo on it and everything, and you use it to, hold your work badge. So, I think I put in some coasters from a satellite launch, that you could only get if you worked there, So, and it would just kept going for like months, and it went all over the world. So that was kind of successful and kind of fun. I think it would be a neat idea if something like that could be attempted in the gaming world, is to, just start off with a big box and you mail it to somebody, they throw in a few things, take something out, send it to the next person. I mean, it clearly relies hugely on integrity and the fact that everybody in the forum, the community that you're invested in, knows that you have it and knows that it needs to leave, from your place to the next person. I don't know if a community like that, since forums have kind of died out as an idea, I don't know if there's a place to have that kind of. I could see like the CGE, back in the day, the CGE big box of crap, if that had happened. But I think that probably isn't something we could pull off these days.
I mean, subscriptions in general are just a tough business, whether it's magazines or monthly boxes and things like that. I think, even Amazon probably, they want to push you into subscriptions for things that you buy, like, hey, get your dog food delivered every 3 months or something on a subscription. But subscriptions are just, people are fickle. They like the variety of choice and things like that. So I just, it's a tough business. I want to monitor this one closely because I think that 10 million is going to go pretty quick. It's a very cash intensive business. And, I wouldn't be surprised if some people are left sitting on their hands with unfulfilled subscriptions at some point.
Nudes and Patreons, that's where the subscription money is.
Yeah. The prize random Jibe claimed Vanquish on the PS3, but is that going to be region locked?
No.
No? A PS3 game's not?
All except 2, I think.
All right. I didn't realise that. Okay, then.
So, I used to buy all of my PS3 games from Canada for ages because it was cheaper for a while.
Cheap games, eh?
Well, this one came in from Random Dave. Turn the Nintendo Switch into Android's best gaming hardware. And it was posted on Ars Technica. The Nintendo Switch is basically a game console made out of smartphone parts. Who knew? The quad-core NVIDIA Tegra X1 ARM is right there at home in a smartphone or tablet, along with 4 gigabytes of RAM, 720p touchscreen, and a battery. So really the only thing that makes the Switch a gaming console is the sweet slide-on controllers and the fact that it's been blessed by Nintendo with AAA, good games, ecosystem, and developer outreach.
Oh, when did those come out?
They're out. So looks like some homebrew hackers have decided to get the wheel spinning and get Android on the Switch. And, it looks like these guys have been able to do it. So no surprise there. It's been hacked and people are putting some Android stuff on there. Have you tried this, Random?
No, I've not tried it. I don't think I'm quite ready to risk losing my Switch, especially sort of online capabilities. That's kind of core with Mario Maker. And well, I haven't played any for a while, but I was playing quite a bit of Splatoon 2. But it's interesting this because RetroArch was already ported as just a homebrew title. And then now, theoretically, if Android runs decently, then you've got access to all the Android stuff. So, this means you can actually get Netflix and YouTube and stuff like that, presumably, on there. But also then, I wonder how well the Android RetroArch runs or perhaps other Android emulators. But I found with my GPD XD that I actually went away from bespoke emulators and RetroArch had become good enough to just run that as the main thing for it all. So I wonder if rather than putting a dedicated RetroArch on it, it might be better to just Android it, and then you've got access to Android stuff plus the Android versions of RetroArch, like the generic stuff. I wonder if that may be fairly decent way to go. Especially if you're thinking of you're someone that's picking up some of either the Switch Lite or there's not really much more reason to pick up the new model with the extra battery life, really. It's not worth the money just to then go, well, I can use the old one to hack or whatever. But
Well, one of the things they point out in the article is that there was an update that Nintendo made. So you need a Switch that's been purchased before mid 2018 that would be vulnerable for this update. So if you follow the article, you can go on there and there's a list of serial numbers that this exploit will work for, and a step-by-step guide to do so. But I don't think that you'll be able to buy the Switch Lite or one of the newer ones and just go ahead and try this. You'd have to do it with an older model. So who knows? Maybe the resaleability, sometimes that will make these a little bit more desirable on the secondhand market.
Yeah, the old PS3s that you could do a lot more to, for a while, they seem to be a lot more expensive than the newer ones that weren't as hackable and things like that. And you had the same with, you've had the same with PSPs and things like that for a while. So yeah, perhaps we'll see.
We will see. Got one here. I don't think it was sent in, but I will show it you live on screen there. Camborne Retro Video Game Night. It is being held in the Hub in Camborne, and it's Friday, the 4th of October, this very year. Tickets, there's two prices there. There's £4.40 and £4 for general admission, so I'm not sure which it is. Either way, it's not going to break the bank. So if you're at all able to get down to Camborne on the 4th of October for the Retro Video Game Night, you will get to meet the illustrious Adrian Killens of the British IBM, who's organising the thing. I'm planning on going, and up to now, I am able to go. So I'll hopefully make it down there. So you get to meet me as well. So that would be fantastic. Imagine that.
As well. Oh, I just think £4.40. That's less than you can probably buy a pint for in Cambridge.
It probably is. It probably is. So I paid £3 a pint this afternoon, which was quite reasonable.
Why is it so expensive?
Cambridge, it's a very touristy place. Lots of history and lots of students who want to drink beer. So
I paid £7.60 for a pint yesterday. But that's a special pint. But usually, yeah, I'll be paying about £2.80. Good old Sheffield prices.
Yeah. So Sparkle sent one in here. He may know more about it than me. Hands-on with the Capcom Home Arcade. This is the controller, of course, that is in the shape of the word Capcom. It's in the shape of the logo. And didn't make a whole lot of sense. Is there any more info on it in this article?
I don't know, but I watched Digital Foundry have been looking at it, and they had a bit of a brief discussion of it in one of their videos, and it sounds like the emulation and everything is actually pretty solid. I think there was they noticed some slight performance issues in some of the games. I can't remember what the circumstances were, but they were sort of hoping that it would get ironed out before full release. But then there was so this was a bit of a controversial one, as most of them are, because it was going to use what was it going to use? It's going to use one of the emulators that was basically, you couldn't then license the way that it had been, community built. The license meant that you couldn't use it for commercial projects. When they sort of said, "Oh yeah, we're using this," the Final Burn Alpha, I think it was, and yeah, so that people had pointed out, you can't do this. The license doesn't allow you. So they then got in touch with some guy independently, who I think was one of the developers who contributed towards Final Burn, and he's basically then just created this whole thing. I say himself. He's the only one credited at the moment. Whether he's got outside help, I don't know. But looks like they're doing it on the up and up, and they've put decent parts in the joysticks. One of the complaints was that they had is that it's a octagonal gate by default, and they prefer to have a square gate in for a lot of the fighting games, but it's all sort of Sanwa parts, so you can just change the gates out reasonably cheaply compared to the rest of the unit. So it seems like it might actually be all right, considering it was a bit of a laughing stock when it was announced, and there's just a giant Capcom logo that everyone just assumed that YouTubers would put on the shelf behind them, and that would be about it.
Yeah, so this is about $260 right now. You could pre-order it in the UK. It doesn't look like it's available for purchase in the US yet, which is kind of weird. It's supposed to come out October 25th. Comes with 16 games: 1944, Loop Master, Alien vs Predator, Armor Warriors, Capcom Sports Club, Captain Commando, Cyberbots, Darkstalkers, Echo Fighters, Final Fight, Ghouls and Ghosts, Giga Wing, Mega Man Power Battle, Pro Gear, Street Fighter 2, Hyper Fighting, Strider, and Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. So pretty decent selection of games. I don't know what else I'd really want to see on it. It gives you a good amount. I mean, if the controller is nice and solid, hey, this might be a good way, instead of trying to find yourself an old cabinet and go through all that. If you're just looking for some of that arcade feel with a nice controller and plug and play, kind of a niche thing. Seems kind of expensive. This is $100. I think it would be, impulse purchase for me. But at $260, don't see myself picking it up.
No.
Not so much.
You get a cab for that.
Yeah, unfortunately, in wanting to do it right and put quality parts in, and make a quality product with decent emulation, and not do a PlayStation Mini, the downside of that is that, you've got to pay for that build quality, I suppose. So they need to have struck a better balance, perhaps.
Yeah, and I mean, you can get some of those CPS 2 boards and stuff that are, multi boards from some Japanese distributors that are kind of shady, or is it maybe Hong Kong or Taiwan or something? But those come with like your X-Men vs Street Fighter and Street Fighter Alpha and stuff like that. So you can get those 16-in-1, 32-in-1 boards that have all these games for about the same price, $200, and drop that into our old arcade cab. Have a much better experience, I think. So, not a whole lot more work, and you have something that's a little bit more of a talking piece than this thing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if it's the best controller ever, it's worth it to you, but I'm not quite sure who this is for. But hey, it's still cool that they're trying. They're putting something out there.
Somebody else putting something out there is in television. They released a new Amico trailer. Anyone watched it? Anyone else watched it?
Oh yeah, I am all about this thing. I will be picking one up without question. First of all, it's friends we know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are friends of ours, and I have every faith in them that they will deliver. And all the things I've said of Atari, like, hey guys, how about you make a cool ecosystem that was like Atari never went away, and all. I think this is what's happening here. So I'm hoping the games deliver. And knowing the people involved and their reputation and their history and my experience with them on a personal basis, I have absolute expectation for success.
Yeah, I think some of the games that they teased in the trailer are pretty interesting.
And they're
They look
all
fun.
exclusives as well.
Yeah, they're exclusives. They look fun. I mean, I would look forward to playing some of these games. I don't know if they featured all 17 exclusives in the trailer. Um, I guess I get it why Tommy's doing this from his living room. That's the
Sorry, I
only
hit
thing.
the mic with my head.
It seemed a little weird that he's filming from his little living room, but other than that, I mean, hey, it got me excited. I thought the video was well put together, and a lot of these games look pretty interesting. Was there anything that really kind of jumped out at you guys?
I'm still yet to be convinced. Obviously, the whole sort of people behind it is a lot more trustworthy than the likes of the Atari VCS remake and Coleco Chameleons, etc. But still a bit. I need to see more of the games, I think, and sort of what the price is going to be, because at the moment it was kind of a bit. I just got a bit of a feeling of like it's a bit of a more upmarket version of the Chinese Wii knockoffs that you were getting, sort of thing. It's kind of like it's going for that market, but a bit more upscale perhaps. But I don't know whether it's got anything necessarily that I'm gonna want to really go out and spend money on. Perhaps.
It's still a year away. It's over a year away. Yeah. 10/10/2020.
Who knows what's going to happen by then?
Yeah. They might delay it to make it better.
I mean, Circus looks good. B-17 Bomber game looks good. I'm guessing it's Shark or something that looks pretty interesting. There's a sort of a racer that looks interesting. Some kind of like Assassin Kitty fighting game. It looks kind of ridiculous and fun. Something that I would play. I don't know. I mean, what did they say? The price of games are going to be like $3 or something?
I haven't seen pricing. I don't know. I can't see them being that cheap. Really?
I thought they were like less than $10.
I could see less than 10. 3 might be a stretch.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Tommy, great guy, one of the nicest guys in the industry. Definitely going to buy one to support him. Will I keep buying games for it? I don't know.
Yeah. One here from Andrew Hannay. Something for us down south, he says. Some sort of retro video games exhibition, and it's happening in High Wycombe. It is Future Artists, High Wycombe, and it is, you can play up to 50 plus retro games from the last 30 years, from arcade classics to coveted consoles including Mario Brothers, Space Invaders and Asteroids, and many, many more. There is a full list on the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/futureartists. And for more info, you can go to edenshopping.co.uk/HOVG. So the picture they've got on there looks pretty cool. Looks an old 70s arcade, 80s arcade. And from the tone of his email, he's suggesting they don't get much of that stuff down there. I guess we do have quite a bit up north with the arcade clubs and the expos, etc. So High Wycombe's getting its share now.
Some of the people in that photo look like they're straight out of the 80s.
They do, don't they? Yeah.
Is that what they dress like there?
It's what we dress like now.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike is literally wearing that this second.
Actually wearing those clothes right now.
Why did some of those arcade games, like, they all have that like circular H pattern on the front of them? Like, what's that about?
I'm guessing
Probably just a generic jammer cab.
Yeah.
They bought in bulk and then would swap shit in and out.
Yeah, seems legit. Because they've all got the same button layout as well, by the look of it. The 2 or 3 you can see there.
Yeah, the one dude has like a flock of seagulls haircut on the left-hand side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that like something you see regularly?
It would be in the
Well,
80s.
these are future artists.
Yeah. Yeah, you would see a lot of flock of seagulls hairstyles over here in the 80s.
Fuck yeah, I had one.
Which reminds me, I watched Pulp Fiction last night, and Samuel Jackson calls that guy on the couch, "Hey, flock of seagulls." That's a great film. Great film.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And it's aged
You seen
well.
the new one?
No, I haven't. Any good?
Go see it and then let me know what you think.
I've heard mixed things about it. Some say it's very confusing. Some say it's too long. And there's a couple I know who went watching it. They came out and still don't know what it's about.
Well, that's how I felt. I went to go see Pulp Fiction in the theaters, and the girl I was with was like, "I'll give you a blowjob." So we left halfway through, and I had to watch it a couple times until I really liked it. So I kind of feel the same way about this one. Maybe I need to see it more than once to fully form an opinion on it.
Yeah.
What are we on about?
The new, what's it called? What blowjobs in cinemas? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's what I thought. But then, like, I was confused when you were saying that people couldn't follow it and didn't know what was going on.
He meant why he left the theater. They were like, "Where's he going?"
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. No, I thought it was really good. It got a bit slow at one point, and I was kind of like, "Oh, this is kind of losing its way a bit." And there's some very, very some character interaction that was very like distant, and it was all kind of a bit. Well, I don't know where this is going, but then it just went fucking, just really sort of pulled it together in the last like towards the end. But it's kind of up to a point. Mostly a true story-ish sort of thing. So if you kind of have much of a knowledge of what it's based on, then that possibly helps, I guess. But no, yeah, thought it was really good. I mean, certainly better than Hateful Eight. And I want to watch it again, which I've been saying for ages. It was kind of. I've watched it twice, and I'm kind of like, I don't know. I think I kind of enjoy it, but then sometimes I'm like, it's just a fucking 4 hours. Feels like 4 hours of just people just sat in the same room, like not achieving anything, sort of thing. So, yeah, interesting.
All right. Well, we're out of news. And we've got stuff to do. So, I think we should bid farewell to the people and say thank you to all those who joined us in chat, and well done to those who won a prize. We only did one. Well, there's a few in. We don't want the same people winning it all the time. So join us next month if you want a chance to win a prize from retrogamingroundup.com/prizes. And we'll see you again next month.
To fit out with.
Yeah. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Goodbye.
All right. See you.